Commander Zekthara stared at the screen in his small room on the space station New Geneva. The images showed human soldiers fighting against his own people 12 years ago. He had been there during those battles. He had seen his friends die. Now he was supposed to work with these same humans to keep peace in the galaxy. The alien commander had 4 arms and blue-gray skin that looked like stone. His people, the Vorthons, were bigger and stronger than humans. They had better weapons, and ships too. But somehow the humans had survived the war. Not just survived. They had forced both sides to make peace. Zekthara heard a knock on his door. He turned off the screen and opened it. A human woman in a military uniform stood outside. She had short brown hair and tired eyes. Her name tag, said Carter. Commander Zekthara? I'm Captain Lisa Carter. I'll be working with you on the new mission. Her voice was cold and professional. Captain? Zekthara nodded. He noticed a small scar on her left cheek. A war wound, probably. I was told you would help me understand human military methods. Lisa stepped into his room. It was small and plain, like all the rooms on the station. That's right. We need to work together if we're going to keep peace in the Outer Rim territories. Zekthara could tell she didn't want to be here. He didn't blame her. He had killed many humans during the war. She had probably lost friends fighting his people. Maybe family, too. Show me your battle records, Lisa said, sitting down at his desk. I need to see what you know about our tactics. Zekthara pulled up the files on his computer. These are from the Battle of Kepler Station. My unit was there. Lisa's face went hard when she heard the name. My brother died at Kepler Station. The room became very quiet. Zekthara looked at the woman sitting across from him. She was small compared to him, but he could see strength in her eyes. The same strength he had seen in human soldiers during the war. I am sorry for your loss, he said finally. Just show me the files. They spent the next hour looking at battle footage. Zekthara watched Lisa's face as she saw the recordings. Her brother might be in these images somewhere fighting and dying, but she didn't show any emotion. Your people fought well, Zekthara said, even when you were losing. We don't give up easily, I noticed. Even when my forces had you surrounded, your units kept fighting. They moved in ways that didn't make sense. Lisa looked up from the screen. What do you mean? Zekthara pointed to one of the battle maps. Here. Your soldiers were trapped in this valley. My ships were bombing from above. Your people should have been destroyed in minutes, but look at this. He showed her the movement patterns of the human forces. The soldiers had moved in perfect coordination, like they knew exactly where the bombs would fall. They had escaped through gaps in the Vorthon attack that were only open for seconds. Good training, Lisa said quickly. Our soldiers are well prepared. No. Zekthara shook his head. This is something else. Look at the timing. Your units moved, before my ships even started their attack runs. How did they know? Lisa closed the file. That's classified information, Commander. You don't need to know every detail of our operations. But Zekthara was curious now. He had been a good soldier. But he was also smart. During the war, he had noticed things that didn't make sense about human tactics. Now he had time to really look at the data. Over the next few days, he studied more battle records. The same strange patterns appeared again and again. Human forces would retreat from positions just before Vorthon attacks. They would attack weak points in Vorthon defenses that shouldn't have been visible to human scouts. They coordinated massive operations across multiple star systems without using normal communication channels. Zekthara also noticed something else strange. The casualty reports from the war didn't match what he remembered. According to Vorthon intelligence, they had killed millions of human soldiers, but the actual numbers were much lower. Where had all those extra deaths come from? He tried to ask Lisa about it during their next meeting. They were in a conference room with big windows that looked out at space. Ships from many different alien races docked at the station every day. It was supposed to be a symbol of peace and cooperation. Captain, I have questions about your casualty reports. Lisa was reading a tablet and didn't look up. What about them? Your people lost fewer soldiers than we thought during the war. Much fewer. How is that possible? Now Lisa looked at him. What are you trying to say? I'm trying to understand. My people had better weapons, better ships, more soldiers. We should have won every battle easily, but we didn't. Your forces kept surviving impossible situations. Lisa put down her tablet. Maybe your intelligence was wrong. Maybe you weren't as superior as you thought. Zekthara felt a flash of anger. I was there, Captain. I saw human positions get hit by orbital bombardments that should have killed everyone. But somehow, most of your people got away. Every time. We're good at what we do. This good? Zekthara showed her more data on his computer. Look at these numbers. Battle after battle, your predicted casualties were 10 times higher than your actual casualties. Either your commanders were terrible at math or something else was happening. Lisa stood up. I think we're done for today. Captain, wait. Zekthara also stood. I'm not trying to restart the war. I just want to understand. If we're going to work together, I need to know how your people really fight. Lisa stopped at the door. Some things are better left alone, Commander. Trust me on this. After she left, Zekthara sat alone in the conference room. He looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there were the worlds where he had fought, humans for 12 long years. He had respected them as enemies. They were brave and determined, but he had never understood how they kept surviving when they should have been destroyed. That night, Zekthara couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the battle records and Lisa's reaction. She was hiding something important. He got up and walked through the station's corridors. New Geneva never slept. Beings from dozens of species worked around the clock to keep the peace between their worlds. Humans worked alongside aliens who had been their enemies just a few years ago. Zekthara passed a maintenance worker fixing a broken wall panel. The human was young, maybe in his 20s. His name tag said Johnson. Working late? Zekthara asked. The human looked up. Someone has to keep this place running. You're the Vorthon commander, right? Zekthara? Yes. How did you know? Johnson smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Word gets around. We don't get many former enemy commanders working here. There was something odd about the way Johnson looked at him, like he knew more than he was saying. Zekthara had seen that same look on Lisa's face. Did you fight in the war? Zekthara asked. Yeah, lost a lot of good friends. Johnson went back to his work. But that's over now. We're all supposed to be friends. Zekthara walked away, but he kept thinking about the conversation. Johnson had answered his question before he finished asking it, almost like he knew what Zekthara was going to say. The next morning, Zekthara went to Lisa's office early. She wasn't there yet, but her computer was on. He knew he shouldn't look, but his curiosity was too strong. The screen showed files marked with high-security codes. Zekthara saw names he didn't recognize. Project Mirror Shield, Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison, Major Amy Sullivan. Before he could read more, he heard footsteps in the hall. Lisa walked in and saw him at her computer. Her face went white, then red with anger. What are you doing? I was just checking our schedule for today, Zekthara lied. Lisa quickly shut off the computer. Don't ever touch my files again. Do you understand? Captain, what is Project Mirror Shield? Lisa's anger turned to something else. Fear, maybe. Stay away from things you don't understand, Commander. Some secrets exist for good reasons. She ordered him out of her office. As he left, Zekthara knew he had found something important. The humans were hiding a big secret about the war, and he was going to find out what it was. Zekthara couldn't stop thinking about the files he had seen on Lisa's computer. Project Mirror Shield. The names Jake Morrison and Amy Sullivan. What did they mean? Why had Lisa been so scared when she caught him looking? For 3 days, Lisa avoided him. She sent messages instead of meeting in person. When they did have to work together, she brought other people with her. She didn't trust him anymore. Zekthara decided he needed help. He had heard about a human scientist on the station who studied how different alien species got along. Her name was Dr. Helen Rodriguez. Maybe she could help him understand human behavior during the war. He found Dr. Rodriguez in her laboratory, on Deck 7. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Her lab was full of computers and books about alien psychology. "Commander Zekthara," she said when he knocked on her door. "I've heard about you. Please come in." "Dr. Rodriguez, I need your help with something." "Of course. What can I do for you?" Zekthara sat down across from her desk. "I'm trying to understand how humans fought during the war. There are things that don't make sense to me." Helen leaned forward. "What kind of things?" "Your soldiers did impossible things. They survived battles they should have lost. They coordinated attacks without proper communications. They seemed to know what my people were going to do before we did it." Helen nodded slowly. "Human beings can be very resourceful when they're fighting for survival." "It's more than that." Zekthara pulled out his tablet and showed her some battle data. "Look at these patterns. In every major battle, human forces made perfect tactical decisions. Not good decisions. Perfect ones. Like they had complete information about everything happening on the battlefield." Helen studied the data for a long time. "This is very interesting. Have you talked to Captain Carter about this?" "She won't tell me anything. She says some things are classified." "Maybe they are. The war was very painful for both our species. Some memories are better left alone." But Helen looked troubled as she said it. Zekthara could tell she was curious too. "Dr. Rodriguez, could you help me understand human psychology during wartime? Not military secrets, just how your people think when they're in danger." Helen thought about it. "I suppose that would be acceptable. I have psychological profiles of human soldiers and civilians from the war period. They might help explain what you're seeing." Over the next week, Helen shared her research with Zekthara. She showed him studies of human stress responses, decision-making under pressure, and group behavior in combat situations. But the more they looked at the data, the more confused they became. The psychological profiles didn't match the battle records. According to Helen's research, humans under extreme stress should make more mistakes, not fewer. They should have trouble coordinating with each other, especially in large groups. "This doesn't make sense," Helen said one afternoon. They were in her lab, looking at charts and graphs on her computer. These soldiers were performing far beyond normal human capability. "That's what I've been trying to tell you," Zekthara said. "Your people were doing things that should have been impossible." Helen pulled up more files. "Look at this. These are brain scans from human soldiers taken during the war. The activity patterns are completely abnormal." "Abnormal how?" "The different parts of their brains were working together in ways I've never seen before. It's like their minds were connected to something larger than themselves." Zekthara felt a chill run down his spine. "Connected to what?" "I don't know. The files don't say." Helen looked worried. "Commander, I think we've stumbled onto something important and possibly dangerous." That night, Zekthara decided to do more investigating on his own. He walked through the station's corridors, paying attention to the human crew members. Now that he was looking for it, he started to notice strange things. The maintenance worker, Pete Johnson, always seemed to know when Zekthara was coming. He would look up from his work just before Zekthara turned the corner. The communications officer, Rachel Stone, would start typing reports before her supervisors asked for them. The security guards would check certain areas just before problems happened there. It was like the humans on the station were all part of some invisible network, sharing information without talking to each other. Zekthara tested his theory. He would randomly decide to visit different parts of the station, but somehow the humans there always seemed ready for him. They would have the information he needed or the equipment he was looking for. One evening, he was in the station's cafeteria when he overheard a conversation between two human technicians. "The Vorthan commander is getting suspicious," one of them said quietly. "I know." Rachel felt his questions before he even asked them. "Should we tell Carter?" "She already knows. We all felt it when he accessed her files." Zekthara pretended to read his tablet, but he was listening carefully. The technicians talked like they shared thoughts and feelings, like they were all connected somehow. The next day he confronted Helen with what he had discovered. Dr. Rodriguez, I think the humans on this station are sharing information in ways that aren't normal. Helen looked up from her research. What do you mean? They seem to know things before they happen. They respond to questions before I ask them. It's like they can read minds. Helen's face went pale. That's impossible. Humans aren't telepathic. Are you sure about that? Helen was quiet for a long time. Then she started typing on her computer. Let me check something. She pulled up medical records from the war period. Her hands were shaking as she read through the files. Oh my God, she whispered. What is it? These medical records. They show experimental procedures performed on human soldiers. Neural enhancement, surgeries, brain modifications. Zekthara leaned closer to the screen. What kind of modifications? I'm not sure. The technical details are classified. But look at this. She pointed to a list of names. These soldiers all had the same procedure done. And look at their performance reports after the surgery. The reports showed dramatic improvements in reaction time, tactical awareness, and coordination with other units. But they also showed side effects, headaches, memory problems, and psychological stress. Dr. Rodriguez, are these people still alive? Helen checked the records. Some of them are. In fact, several of them are stationed here on New Geneva. She showed him the names. Pete Johnson, the maintenance worker, Rachel Stone, the communications officer, several other humans he had noticed acting strangely. They're all here, Zekthara said. The enhanced soldiers from the war. They're all working on this peace station. But why? Before Helen could answer, her computer screen suddenly went black. A message appeared. Access denied. Contact station security. They heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Helen quickly shut off her computer. Someone doesn't want us looking at this information, she said. There was a knock on the lab door. Dr. Rodriguez? This is Captain Carter. I need to speak with you and Commander Zekthara. Helen and Zekthara looked at each other. How had Lisa known they were together? They hadn't told anyone about their research. Come in, Helen called. Lisa entered the lab with 2 security guards. She looked angry and worried at the same time. I know what you've been doing, she said. You've been investigating classified information about the war. We have a right to understand what happened, Zekthara said. No, you don't. Lisa's voice was sharp. Some secrets are kept secret for good reasons. You're playing with things you don't understand. Then help us understand, Helen said. If these enhanced soldiers are on the station, if they can share thoughts, don't we have a right to know? Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, the people you're talking about sacrificed more than you can imagine to end the war. They gave up their privacy, their individuality, their peace of mind. They did it to save both our species from destroying each other. So it's true, Zekthara said. Humans developed telepathic abilities during the war. Limited telepathic abilities. And at a terrible cost. Lisa looked tired. These people live with constant mental noise. They feel each other's pain, each other's fears. They can never be truly alone in their own minds. But they won the war for you. They ended the war. There's a difference. Lisa gestured to the security guards. I'm sorry, but I can't let you continue this investigation. It's too dangerous. Dangerous to whom? Zekthara asked. To everyone. To the peace we've built. To the people who sacrificed everything to make it possible. As the security guards escorted them out of the lab, Zekthara realized that he had only begun to understand the truth about human warfare. The enhanced soldiers on the station were living reminders of what humans had done to survive the war. But there were still so many questions. How many humans had been enhanced? What had the telepathic network really been like during the war? And most importantly, what had it cost humanity to develop these abilities? Walking back to his quarters, Zekthara noticed Pete Johnson working on a wall panel nearby. The young human looked up and met his eyes. For just a moment, Zekthara felt something strange, a brief flash of sadness and loneliness that wasn't his own. Then it was gone. Pete Johnson had shared his emotions with him. Just for a second, Zekathara had felt what it was like to be connected to other minds, to never be truly alone, to carry the weight of other people's thoughts and feelings. Zekathara couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the moment when Pete Johnson had shared his emotions. The sadness and loneliness had felt so real, so deep. How did humans live with that kind of mental connection all the time? Despite Captain Carter's warning, he knew he had to learn more. The next morning, he went to find Dr. Rodriguez. He found her in the station's library, reading through old medical journals. "Helen," he said quietly, sitting down next to her. "We can't stop now. We're too close to the truth." She looked around, nervously. "Lisa made it clear that we should drop this investigation." "But you're still researching, aren't you?" Helen sighed. "I can't help myself. As a scientist, I need to understand what happened to these people. Look at this." She showed him an old medical journal from before the war. This article talks about experimental brain surgery techniques, the same techniques mentioned in those classified files. Who wrote it? Dr. Marcus Webb. He was the lead researcher on human neural enhancement during the war, and guess what? He's still alive. He runs a medical research facility in the lower levels of this station. Zekathara felt excited. "We need to talk to him." "R.E.? You crazy? After what happened yesterday?" "Helen, we experienced something impossible. I felt another being's emotions without any technology, without any physical contact. Don't you want to understand how that's possible?" Helen was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "You're right. This is the most important discovery in the history of interspecies psychology. We have to investigate." They made their way to the lower levels of the station. These areas were quieter, used mostly for research and medical facilities. They found Dr. Webb's laboratory behind a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Dr. Webb was an older human man with white hair and tired eyes. When they knocked on his door, he looked at them for a long moment before letting them in. "I've been expecting you," he said. "Expecting us?" Zekathara asked. "The enhanced individuals on the station told me you were asking questions. They can sense curiosity and determination in people. It's one of their abilities." His laboratory was filled with brain scans, neural diagrams, and complex medical equipment. Webb gestured for them to sit down. "You want to know about the neural enhancement program?" he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Helen said. "We need to understand what you did to those people." Webb walked over to a wall covered with photographs. They showed human soldiers in military uniforms. Many of the faces looked young and hopeful. Others looked tired and scared. "These are my test subjects," Webb said. "Volunteers who agreed to undergo experimental surgery to help win the war. Most of them are dead now." "What kind of surgery?" Zekathara asked. Webb pulled up a brain scan on his computer. "We implanted tiny devices in their brains, neural transmitters that allowed them to share thoughts and emotions with other enhanced individuals." "How did you develop this technology?" "We didn't have a choice. The war was going badly. Your people had superior weapons and ships. We were losing every major battle. Human Command came to me and asked if there was any way to give our soldiers an advantage." Webb showed them more brain scans. The first experiments were failures. The subjects died or went insane, but gradually we learned how to make the connections work. "How many people were enhanced?" Helen asked. "At the peak of the program, about 50,000 soldiers had the implants. They formed the core of our military resistance." Zekathara was amazed. 50,000 telepathic soldiers. No wonder we couldn't defeat you." "It wasn't that simple," Webb said. "The network had limitations. The soldiers could only connect with others who had the same type of implant, and the mental strain was enormous." He showed them medical reports detailing the side effects: headaches, memory loss, personality changes, and something called neural feedback syndrome. "What is neural feedback syndrome?" Helen asked. "When too many enhanced soldiers were connected at once, their minds would start to merge. They would lose their individual identities and become part of a collective consciousness." Webb's voice became sad. "I watched brave young men and women slowly disappear into the network. They would start speaking in unison, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions. Eventually, they couldn't function as individuals anymore. "That's horrible," Helen whispered. "It gets worse." When one enhanced soldier died in battle, all the connected soldiers would feel the death as if it happened to them. Imagine feeling yourself die dozens of times during a single battle. Zekthara began to understand the true cost of human survival. How did they endure it? Many didn't. The suicide rate among enhanced soldiers was very high. Others had complete mental breakdowns, but some of them found ways to cope with the connection. Webb pulled up more files. The soldiers developed techniques to manage the mental noise. They learned to block out unwanted thoughts and emotions. They created mental barriers to protect their individual personalities. "What about the soldiers who survived the war?" Helen asked. "About 3,000 enhanced individuals are still alive. Most of them have had their implants deactivated, but a few hundred chose to keep their abilities active. Why would they do that?" Webb looked at them seriously. "Because they believe their sacrifice has meaning. They use their abilities to prevent future conflicts. They can sense when tensions are rising between different species. They can feel anger and hatred before it turns into violence." "The ones on the station?" "Yes. They monitor the emotional state of everyone here. If they detect signs of conflict, they alert security before fights can start. They've prevented dozens of potential incidents." Zekthara thought about Pete Johnson and Rachel Stone. But what kind of life is that? Never having privacy in your own mind? "It's not a life I would choose," Webb admitted. "But they see it as their duty. They gave up their individual peace to maintain peace between our species." Helen was studying the brain scans. "Dr. Webb, could you show us how the network actually functioned during the war?" Webb hesitated. "That information is highly classified. Please, we need to understand what we're dealing with." Webb sighed and pulled up a tactical display from the war. "This shows the Battle of Kepler Station, the one where Captain Carter's brother died." The display showed Vorthon and human forces positioned across the battlefield. But there were strange lines connecting the human units. These lines represent the neural connections between enhanced soldiers, Webb explained. Each human unit had at least one enhanced individual. They could share tactical information instantly across the entire battlefield. Zekthara stared at the display. "This is how you coordinated those impossible maneuvers?" "Yes. When a Vorthon ship moved into position, every enhanced soldier on the battlefield knew about it immediately. When one unit discovered a weakness in your defenses, all units could exploit it at the same time. But look at this." Webb pointed to areas where the connection lines suddenly disappeared. "These represent enhanced soldiers who died during the battle. Each death sent a shockwave through the entire network." Helen studied the pattern. "It looks like the network grew stronger as more soldiers connected, but also more fragile as they took casualties." "Exactly. Near the end of the war, we had to limit the size of the connections. The network was becoming too powerful and too unstable." "What do you mean too powerful?" Zekthara asked. Webb showed them classified reports from the final months of the war. The enhanced soldiers weren't just sharing tactical information anymore. They were beginning to share memories, personalities, even dreams. "We were creating a collective consciousness that was no longer entirely human." "Is that why the war ended?" "Partly. Both sides realized that continued fighting would either destroy the enhanced humans completely or transform them into something that was no longer human. Neither option was acceptable." Webb turned off the displays. The peace treaty included secret provisions about the neural enhancement program. Both sides agreed to limit the technology and protect the surviving enhanced individuals. "But some of them chose to keep their abilities active," Helen said. "Yes. They see themselves as guardians of the peace. They live with constant mental noise and emotional pain because they believe it serves a greater purpose." As they prepared to leave, Webb stopped them. "There's something else you should know. The enhanced individuals can sense strong emotions, from normal people too, especially when those emotions are directed at them." "What does that mean?" "It means they know you've been investigating them. They know you're curious about their abilities, and they know you're not a threat to them. Walking back through the station corridors, Zekathara and Helen were quiet. They had learned more than they expected, but the knowledge was overwhelming. "Those poor people," Helen said finally. "They sacrificed their individual minds to save both our species." "And they're still sacrificing," Zekathara added. "Every day they live with the mental connections that saved us all." As they reached Helen's laboratory, Pete Johnson was working on a maintenance panel nearby. He looked up and smiled at them. "Dr. Webb told you everything, didn't he?" Pete said. "How did you know we saw Dr. Webb?" Helen asked. Pete tapped his temple. "We always know when someone learns about us. We felt your shock and sadness when he explained what we've been through." "Don't you want privacy?" Zekathara asked. Zekathara spent the next few days thinking about everything Dr. Webb had told them. The idea that humans had connected their minds together to fight his people was both amazing and terrifying, but he still had many questions. He decided to talk to Captain Carter again. Maybe now that he knew the truth, she would be willing to share her story. He found Lisa in her office late one evening. She was staring at her computer screen, but she wasn't really reading anything. She looked tired and sad. "Captain Carter?" he said, knocking gently on her door. She looked up. "Commander, I thought security told you to stop investigating." "They did. But I talked to Dr. Webb. I know about the neural enhancement program now." Lisa's face went pale. "What did he tell you?" "Everything. About the implants, the network, the enhanced soldiers." Zekathara sat down across from her. "He told me that you were one of them." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed her computer and looked at him. "I was one of the first test subjects," she said quietly. "I volunteered when I was 22 years old. My brother had just joined the military, and we were losing the war badly." "What was it like?" Lisa rubbed her temples like she had a headache. "At first it was wonderful. Imagine being able to share thoughts with your best friends. Imagine never feeling alone, never feeling confused or scared because there were always other minds there to help you. But it changed. As more soldiers got the implants, the network grew larger. Instead of connecting with just a few people, I was connected to hundreds, then thousands of minds. The mental noise became overwhelming." She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, ships from different alien species moved through space, bringing supplies and diplomats to the station. I could feel every emotion from every connected soldier. When someone was scared, I felt their fear. When someone was angry, I felt their rage. When someone died, her voice trailed off. "You felt their death," Zekathara finished. "Yes, I died 17 times during the war. 17 times I felt the life leave a body that I thought was mine. Each time it took me hours to remember who I really was." Zekathara tried to imagine what that would be like. To feel yourself die over and over again, only to wake up and realize you were still alive. How did you survive it? Some of us didn't. My friend Jake Morrison was one of the early enhanced soldiers. The network connections drove him insane. He started believing he was all of the connected soldiers at the same time. He couldn't remember his own name or his own memories. Lisa pulled up a photo on her computer. It showed a young man in a military uniform, smiling at the camera. Jake was brilliant and funny. He wanted to be a teacher after the war. But the network consumed his personality. By the end, he was just an empty shell carrying other people's thoughts. What happened to him? He died during the Battle of Sigma Prime, but not from enemy fire. His brain couldn't handle the neural overload anymore. The doctors said his mind just stopped. Zekathara felt sick. How many others died like that? Hundreds, maybe thousands. We called it neural burnout. The implants would overload the brain with too much information, and the person would essentially disappear while their body kept living. Lisa sat back down. There was another enhanced soldier named Amy Sullivan. She was tough, one of the best tactical minds in the military. But as the network grew, she started losing pieces of herself. What do you mean? She would forget her own childhood memories, but she could remember the childhood of other connected soldiers perfectly. She would call her mother by someone else's mother's name. Her personality became a mixture of everyone she was connected to. Did she survive the war? Physically, yes. But the real Amy Sullivan was gone, long before the fighting ended. The person who came back had her face and her body, but she was really a combination of dozens of different people. Zekthara was beginning to understand the true horror of what humans had done to themselves. Why didn't you stop the program? We tried. But by then, the network was the only thing keeping humanity alive in the war. Without the enhanced soldiers, your people would have destroyed us completely. Lisa pulled up more files on her computer. Look at this. These are casualty reports from battles where enhanced soldiers weren't present. The numbers were terrible. In battles without the neural network, human forces lost 90% of their soldiers. With the network, they lost only 10%. We were trapped, Lisa said. We couldn't win without the network, but the network was destroying us from the inside. How did it end? Military command made a terrible decision. They started limiting the size of the network connections. They would activate the implants for specific battles, then shut them down afterward. Did that help? It helped preserve our sanity, but it made the network less effective. We started losing battles again. Your people pushed us back to our core worlds. Lisa showed him star maps from the final months of the war. Human territory had shrunk to just a few dozen planets. That's when they made the final decision. They activated every enhanced soldier at the same time. 50,000 minds connected in one massive network. Zekthara stared at the map. What happened? For 3 days we had access to the most powerful collective intelligence ever created. Every enhanced soldier knew everything that every other enhanced soldier knew. We could coordinate attacks across hundreds of star systems simultaneously. And we stopped your final offensive. Not just stopped it, we crushed it. Your fleets retreated from every front at the same time. Lisa's voice became very quiet. But the cost was enormous. Half of the enhanced soldiers died from neural overload in those 3 days. The other half, many of them never recovered their individual personalities. Is that when the peace negotiations started? Yes. Both sides realized that the war had gone too far. Your people were terrified of what we had become. Our people were horrified at what we had done to ourselves. Zekthara thought about those final battles. He remembered the confusion and fear among Vorthon forces when human attacks became impossibly coordinated. They had seemed to know every Vorthon move before it happened. Captain, are you still connected to the network? Lisa nodded slowly. About 200 of us kept our implants active after the war. We work in peacekeeping roles using our abilities to prevent new conflicts. What is it like now? Quieter than during the war, but never silent. I can feel the emotions of the other enhanced individuals on this station. Pete Johnson's loneliness, Rachel Stone's grief for the friends she lost, the constant worry we all carry about maintaining the peace. Don't you want to have the implant removed? Sometimes. But then, I remember why we kept them. Last month, we detected rising tensions between the Altarian and Centauri delegations. They were planning to start a trade war that could have led to real fighting. We alerted station security, and they mediated the dispute before it became violent. You prevented a war? A small one, but wars have a way of growing larger. The enhanced soldiers have prevented 17 potential conflicts in the past 2 years. Zekthara was amazed. How do you do it? We can feel anger and hatred building in people before they even realize it themselves. Strong emotions create patterns that we can detect through our network. But what about your own lives? Your own happiness? Lisa smiled sadly. Happiness is a luxury we gave up during the war, but we found something else. Purpose. We know that our sacrifice means something. Do you ever regret volunteering for the program? Every day. But I also know that without us, both our species would probably be extinct now. The war would have continued until one side completely destroyed the other. As they talked, Zekthara noticed that Pete Johnson and Rachel Stone had appeared in the corridor outside Lisa's office. They weren't doing any work. They were just standing there. They're protecting you, Zekthara realized. We protect each other. It's what we do. Lisa looked at her friends through the window. Pete lost his wife and children during the war. Rachel watched her entire unit die in front of her. But they still choose to serve, to use their pain for something positive. I want to talk to them. Are you sure? Their stories are even harder to hear than mine. Zekthara nodded. He needed to understand the full scope of what these humans had endured. Lisa called Pete and Rachel into her office. They sat down quietly, looking at Zekthara with curious but friendly expressions. Pete, Rachel, Commander Zekthara wants to understand what we've been through. Pete spoke first. I joined the enhancement program after my family was killed in a Vorthon bombing raid. I wanted revenge, but I got something else instead. What? I got to carry the memories and love of every enhanced soldier who died. When Jake Morrison's mind burned out, his memories came to me. When Amy Sullivan lost herself, I kept pieces of who she used to be. Rachel nodded. We're living libraries of everyone we've lost. Their personalities, their dreams, their love for their families. It all lives on in us. That sounds like a heavy burden, Zekthara said. It is, Rachel agreed. But it's also beautiful. None of our friends are really gone as long as we remember them. As Zekthara listened to their stories, he began to understand that the enhanced humans had found a way to turn their tragedy into something meaningful. They carried the memories of the dead, protected the living, and worked every day to make sure the war's sacrifices weren't wasted. Zekthara lay awake in his quarters that night, thinking about everything he had learned. The enhanced humans had sacrificed their individual minds to save both species from destroying each other. They lived every day with the mental voices of their dead friends. They used their pain to protect peace in the galaxy. He had spent 12 years fighting these people, thinking they were just another enemy to defeat. Now he understood that humans had fought not for conquest or glory, but for survival. They had been willing to give up their own humanity to protect it. 3 days later, an emergency alarm rang through the station. Zekthara rushed to the command center where he found Captain Carter and her team working frantically at their computers. What's happening? He asked. Pirates are attacking a civilian transport ship, Lisa said without looking up. 300 passengers, including families with children. Zekthara looked at the tactical display. The transport ship was badly damaged and surrounded by 5 pirate vessels. Station security was preparing rescue ships, but they wouldn't arrive in time. How long until our ships reach them? Zekthara asked. 40 minutes, the security chief replied. The transport won't last that long. Lisa was typing rapidly on her computer, but Zekthara noticed something strange. Around the command center, other enhanced humans had stopped their normal work and were standing perfectly still. Pete Johnson, Rachel Stone, and several others had their eyes closed, like they were concentrating on something. Lisa, what are they doing? They're connecting to enhanced individuals throughout the sector. We have people on cargo ships, passenger liners, and military vessels within range of the attack. What can they do from so far away? Lisa didn't answer. She was completely focused on her screen. But Zekthara could see that something unusual was happening on the tactical display. Ships that had been traveling on normal routes were suddenly changing course toward the pirate attack. Not just military ships, civilian vessels, cargo haulers, even small private craft were turning to help. How are you coordinating all these ships? Zekthara asked. Pete Johnson opened his eyes and looked at him. Every ship out there has at least one enhanced person on board. We're sharing information instantly across the entire network. On the display, Zekthara watched 12 different ships converge on the pirate attack from multiple directions. The coordination was perfect. The civilian ships moved to protect the damaged transport while the military vessels engaged the pirates. But he also noticed something troubling. The enhanced humans in the command center were starting to show signs of strain. Pete was sweating, Rachel was gripping her chair so tightly her knuckles were white, and Lisa's hands were shaking. You're in pain, Zekthara said. The network is large right now, Lisa replied through gritted teeth. We're connected to over 100 people across multiple star systems. The mental load is enormous. Then stop. Let the rescue ships handle it. We can't stop, Pete said. There are children on that transport. We can feel their fear through The network. We have to save them. Zekthara watched the rescue operation unfold. The enhanced humans coordinated the attack with impossible precision. Ships attacked from angles that the pirates couldn't defend against. The transport was rescued with minimal casualties, but the cost to the enhanced humans was severe. When the operation ended, several of them collapsed from exhaustion. Lisa had to be helped to a chair and Rachel was bleeding from her nose. "Why do you do this to yourselves?" Zekthara asked as he helped Pete to the medical bay. "Because we can," Pete replied weakly. "Because we have abilities that can save lives, and it would be selfish not to use them." In the medical bay, Dr. Webb examined the enhanced humans while Zekthara watched. Their brain scans showed severe neural activity, like they had been running a marathon with their minds. "This is what they do every time there's a crisis," Dr. Webb explained quietly. "They push their enhanced abilities to the limit to help others even though it causes them enormous pain. How do they survive it? They take care of each other. When one of them is overloaded, the others share the mental burden. It's the only way they can function." Zekthara stayed with the enhanced humans while they recovered. As he watched them, he realized that they had become something new. They weren't quite human anymore. But they weren't machines either. They were living bridges between individual consciousness and collective intelligence. The next day, Zekthara had to make a decision. His superiors in the Vorthon military had sent him a message asking for a detailed report about human capabilities. They wanted to know if humans still posed a threat to Vorthon security. He could tell them about the enhanced humans and their abilities. The information would probably restart the arms race between their species. Or he could protect the secret and preserve the peace that so many people had died to create. Zekthara went to find Lisa in her office. She was feeling better but still looked tired. "Captain, I need to ask you something important." "What is it?" "My government wants a full report about human military capabilities. They're worried that you might develop new weapons to use against us." Lisa's face went pale. "What are you going to tell them?" "That depends on you. Help me understand something. Why did you let me learn about the enhanced humans? You could have stopped my investigation at any time." Lisa thought about his question. "Because you needed to understand what the war really cost both our species, and because the enhanced individuals could sense that you weren't a threat. They knew you were asking questions out of curiosity, not malice. But now I have information that could restart the war." "Yes, you do." Zekthara sat down across from her. "Tell me honestly, are there any plans to use the enhancement technology again?" "No. All the research has been destroyed. The few hundred enhanced individuals still alive are all that remain of the program. When we die, the technology dies with us. Why? Because we learned that some prices are too high to pay, even for survival. The enhancement program saved our species, but it also changed us in ways we can never undo." Lisa showed him files on her computer. "Look at this. These are the psychological profiles of enhanced individuals 10 years after the war. We have higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide than any other group in human society. But you continue to serve. Because someone has to. We made this sacrifice, and now we have to live with it. But we would never ask anyone else to make the same choice." Zekthara made his decision. "I'm going to tell my superiors that humans have advanced tactical training and good military discipline. Nothing more. You're going to lie to your own government? I'm going to protect a secret that preserves peace. The enhanced humans aren't weapons. They're guardians. The galaxy is safer with them protecting it." Lisa smiled for the first time since he had known her. "Thank you." Over the following weeks, Zekthara worked closely with the enhanced humans to improve security on the station. He learned to recognize the signs when they were using their abilities to prevent conflicts. A slight frown from Pete when two alien diplomats were arguing. Rachel moving closer to a group that was getting angry. Lisa quietly alerting security before fights could start. They were always watching, always protecting, always sacrificing their own peace of mind for the safety of others. One evening, Zekthara found himself in the station's observation lounge with Lisa, Pete, and Rachel. They were watching ships from dozens of different species dock at the station. It was a symbol of the peace that their sacrifice had made possible. "Do you ever regret what you became?" Zekthara asked. "Every day," Lisa replied. "But I also know that our pain has meaning. Every conflict we prevent, every life we save makes the sacrifice worthwhile. What will happen when you're all gone?" Pete looked thoughtful. "We hope that by then the different species will have learned to live together without our help. We're buying time for natural peace to develop. And if it doesn't? Then future generations will have to find their own solutions," Rachel said. "We can't solve every problem, we can only do our part." As they sat together, Zekthara felt a strange sensation. For just a moment he could sense the emotions of the enhanced humans around him. Their sadness, their determination, their love for the people they protected. It was overwhelming and beautiful at the same time. "You shared that with me on purpose," he said. "We wanted you to understand what we carry every day," Lisa explained. "The weight of other people's lives, the responsibility of protecting peace, the knowledge that our sacrifice matters." Zekthara nodded. He finally understood what made humans truly remarkable. It wasn't their technology or their fighting ability. It was their willingness to give up everything, even their own nature, to protect others. 6 months later, Zekthara submitted his final report to Vorthan High Command. He recommended continued cooperation with human forces and praised their commitment to galactic peace. He requested permanent assignment to the Joint Peacekeeping Program. His superiors approved the request. They were impressed by the successful partnership between Vorthan and human forces. Zekthara never told them about the enhanced humans. That secret would remain protected, as it should be. Some sacrifices were too important to expose to political calculations.